Emma pressed her face against the cold train window and watched the green fields of England rush by. Her fingers held tight to her grandfather's old brown leather journal. The book was worn and soft from many years of use. At 28 years old, Emma felt like everything in her life had fallen apart. 3 months ago, something terrible had happened. The building company where Emma worked as an architect had fired her. A big project she had designed had serious problems. The building had cracks in the walls and the roof leaked when it rained. Emma blamed herself for every mistake she used to feel confident about her work. But now she only felt shame and doubt. The train was taking her to the Scottish Highlands, far up north where the mountains touched the sky. This was where her grandfather had grown up as a little boy. Emma carried a small wooden box in her bag. Inside the box were her grandfather's ashes, before he died. He had asked her to take his ashes to the mountains he loved. He wanted to rest there forever. Emma had never felt so alone in her whole life. Her grandfather had been her best friend and her guide. When she was scared or confused, he always knew what to say. Now he was gone, and she felt lost without him. In the seat right next to Emma sat a man named James. He looked to be about 35 years old. His eyes looked very tired, like he had not slept well in a long time. His hands were rough and had small scars on them. James stared out the window on his side of the train. His jaw was tight and his face looked worried. James was also traveling to Scotland, but for a different reason. His younger brother was getting married in Edinburgh in 2 days. James had not talked to his brother in 3 long years. When James came back home from being a soldier and a medic in the war, he had changed. The things he saw and did during the war made him sad and angry. He pushed his family away because he thought his problems would hurt them. Now he was going to the wedding. But he did not know what he would say to his brother. Both Emma and James sat very quietly as the train moved through the countryside. Each person was thinking about their own problems and pain. They did not know that this train ride would change both of their lives in ways they could never imagine. The only sound they shared was the steady rhythm of the train wheels on the metal tracks, click-clack, click-clack, click-clack. To strangers with heavy hearts were traveling towards something they could not see yet. The sun began to set outside the windows. The sky turned orange and pink. Emma slowly opened her grandfather's journal and started to read his handwriting. Her grandfather had beautiful handwriting that curved and flowed like music. He had written about courage and about new beginnings. He had written about how every ending was also a new start. As Emma read, tears began to fall down her cheeks. She tried to cry quietly so she would not bother the man sitting next to her. The tears were not just sad tears. They were also tears of love for her grandfather and tears of fear about what would happen to her now. James noticed Emma crying, but he did not say anything. He wanted to respect her privacy. He understood what it felt like to be sad and alone. James had his own tears that he cried when no one was watching. He had his own fears about facing his brother and his family. He wondered if they would forgive him for staying away for so long. The train continued to move north as darkness fell outside. Small lights from houses and towns flickered in the distance like stars on the ground. Emma kept reading her grandfather's words, and James kept looking out the window, both lost in their own thoughts. Neither Emma nor James knew that tomorrow would bring something unexpected. They did not know that a problem with the train would force them to spend time together. They did not know that sharing their stories would help heal their hearts. They did not know that this sad journey would become the beginning of a beautiful friendship. For now, they were just two lonely people on a train, carrying their pain in silence. But sometimes the most important meetings happen when we least expect them. Sometimes the people who change our lives are sitting right next to us, and we just have to be brave enough to start talking. The train moved through the night, carrying Emma and James toward their destinations and toward each other. The train made a loud screeching sound and slowly came to a stop. Emma looked out the window and saw they were in a small town she had never heard of before. Snow was falling heavily outside, covering everything in white. The conductor's voice came over the speaker system. "Ladies and gentlemen, I am sorry to tell you that we cannot continue our journey tonight. There is too much snow on the tracks ahead. We will need to stay here until morning when the snow plows can clear the way. Please take your things and go to the station waiting room." All the passengers started to complain and grumble. They picked up their bags and coats and slowly walked off the train. Emma grabbed her small suitcase and her grandfather's journal. She followed the other people into the tiny train station. The waiting room was old and cold. It had wooden benches and dim yellow lights that flickered sometimes. The windows were drafty and let in cold air. There were about 20 other passengers in the room, all looking unhappy about being stuck there for the night. Emma found an empty spot on one of the benches. Across from her sat James, the man who had been sitting next to her on the train. She still held her grandfather's journal tight against her chest, even though she was wearing a thick winter coat. She could not stop shivering. The cold seemed to go right through her clothes and into her bones. James watched Emma shiver and saw that she looked very cold and sad. Without saying anything, he stood up from his bench and walked over to her. He took off his green military jacket and gently put it round her shoulders. The jacket was warm and smelled like soap and fresh air. Emma looked up at him with surprise. "Thank you," she said in a quiet voice. She was not used to strangers being kind to her. James sat down on the bench across from her. "You looked cold," he said in a simple way. His voice was soft and gentle. "Are you all right? I noticed on the train that you seemed upset earlier." There was something special about the way James spoke. His voice was kind and caring, without being pushy or nosy. Emma felt like she could trust him, even though they had never talked before. Something inside her heart opened up, like a door that had been locked for a long time. Emma found herself telling James everything. She told him about her grandfather and how much she missed him. She told him about losing her job and how the building she designed had problems. She told him about feeling like she was a failure and that nothing she did was good enough anymore. James listened to every word Emma said. He did not interrupt her or tell her she was wrong to feel sad. He did not try to fix her problems or give her advice she did not want. He just listened with his whole heart, nodding sometimes to show he understood. While he listened to Emma, he forgot about his own worries and pain. Emma touched her grandfather's journal with her fingers. "My grandfather always used to say that. Setbacks are just setups for comebacks," she said. "He believed that when bad things happen, they are just getting us ready for something good to happen later. But I don't know how to believe that anymore. I don't see how anything good can come from losing my job and feeling so lost." James nodded his head slowly. He understood exactly how Emma felt. "I understand what it is like to feel lost," he said. "I came back home from being a soldier overseas 2 years ago. I was a medic, which means I helped hurt soldiers get better. But I could not save everyone. Some of my friends died, and I could not help them." James looked down at his hands. "When I came home, I was different. I had nightmares and got angry about small things. I was scared that my problems would hurt my family. So I stopped talking to them. I thought I was protecting them, but really I was just protecting myself from getting hurt again." He looked back up at Emma. "Now I am going to my little brother's wedding in Edinburgh. We have not talked in 3 years. I don't even know what to say to him." I don't know if he will forgive me for staying away so long. In that cold, drafty waiting room with its flickering lights, something beautiful started to happen. Emma and James began to share their deepest secrets and fears with each other. They learned that they both carried heavy guilt in their hearts. Emma blamed herself for her career problems and felt like she had let everyone down. James blamed himself for not being able to save his soldier friends and for pushing his family away. But as they talked and shared their pain, something began to change. The sadness they had been carrying alone started to feel lighter when they shared it with each other. Emma realized she was not the only person who felt like a failure. James realized he was not the only person who felt guilty about things he could not control. Other passengers in the waiting room were sleeping or reading books or talking quietly among themselves. But Emma and James were in their own little world, discovering that they were not alone after all. They had found each other at exactly the moment when they both needed a friend the most. The snow continued to fall outside the windows. But inside the waiting room, two lonely hearts were beginning to heal. The next morning, the snow had stopped falling and the train tracks were clear again. Emma and James got back on the train together. But now they were no longer strangers. They had become friends during their long night in the cold waiting room. They chose to sit together and continue talking as the train moved through the beautiful Lake District. Outside the windows, Emma and James could see amazing views. There were clear blue lakes surrounded by green hills and tall mountains. The morning sun made the water sparkle like diamonds. It was so beautiful that it took their breath away. But even more beautiful was the friendship that was growing between them. Emma was helping James think about what he would say to his brother at the wedding. "I think you should start by saying you are sorry," she suggested. "Tell him that you missed him and that you want to be close again." James practiced the words out loud. "I could say, I am sorry for staying away so long. I was scared and confused. But I should have talked to you instead of pushing you away." He looked worried. "Do you think he will forgive me? If he loves you, he will understand," Emma said with confidence. Brothers always forgive each other when they both try to make things right. While Emma helped James, he was also helping her. He encouraged her to think about her grandfather's journal in a new way, instead of seeing it as something that made her sad because her grandfather was gone. James helped her see it as something that could make her strong. "Your grandfather sounds like he was an incredible man," James said as Emma read more stories from the journal. "He was wise and kind and brave. He would not want you to give up on your dreams because of one problem at work." Emma read a passage from the journal out loud. "My grandfather wrote, 'Every master was once a beginner. Every expert was once a disaster. The only difference between those who succeed and those who fail is that successful people get back up one more time than they fall down.'" "See," James said with a smile, "your grandfather knew that everyone makes mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them and try again." As they talked and laughed together, the train entered a long dark tunnel through the mountains. Suddenly, the train's whistle blew very loudly. The sound echoed off the tunnel walls and became even louder. James suddenly grabbed the sides of his seat very tightly. His breathing became fast and shallow, like he could not get enough air. His face went pale and his hands started to shake. Emma could see that something was very wrong. "James, look at me," Emma said in a calm, steady voice. She remembered when she used to have panic attacks after her grandfather died and after she lost her job. Her grandfather had taught her special breathing exercises to help her feel better. "Breathe with me," Emma said gently. "Breathe in slowly for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hold your breath for 4 counts." 1, 2, 3, 4. Now breathe out slowly for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. Emma kept talking to James in her calm voice, helping him follow the breathing pattern. Slowly, his breathing began to slow down. His hands stopped shaking and the color came back to his face. After a few minutes, he was breathing normally again. "Thank you," James said quietly. He looked embarrassed and ashamed. "I am sorry you had to see that. Loud noises sometimes bring back memories from the war. I remember explosions and gunfire and people screaming. Sometimes my mind thinks I am still there, even though I know I am safe." Emma reached over and gently touched his hand. "We all have things that scare us or make us remember bad times," she said kindly. "You don't have to be embarrassed. The important thing is that you don't have to face these scary moments alone anymore." James felt grateful for Emma's kindness and understanding. Now, he wanted to help her the same way she had helped him. He shared some of the things he had learned during his military training and his work as a medic. "Emma, I want you to know something important," James said seriously. "Failure is not falling down. Everyone falls down sometimes. Failure is staying down when you have the strength to get back up. And you do have that strength." James looked directly into Emma's eyes. "I can see your strength in the way you talk about your grandfather with so much love. I can see it in the way you just helped me when I was having a panic attack. I can see it in the way you are brave enough to travel alone to scatter your grandfather's ashes. You are much stronger than you think you are." For the first time in many months, Emma began to see herself in a different way. Maybe she was not a complete failure. Maybe one problem with one building project did not define who she was as a person or as an architect. Maybe, just like her grandfather had always told her, she really was stronger than she knew. Emma smiled at James. "Thank you for helping me see that. I think we are both stronger when we help each other." The train continued through the beautiful countryside, carrying to friends who were learning to believe in themselves again. As the train moved deeper into Scotland, Emma and James watched the landscape change outside their windows. The gentle hills of England had given way to the wild and beautiful Scottish Highlands. Tall mountains rose up on both sides of the train tracks, their peaks covered with clouds. Deep valleys stretched between the mountains, filled with purple heather and dark forests. Clear streams rushed down the mountainsides, sparkling in the sunlight. Both Emma and James felt something changing inside their hearts as they watched the stunning scenery pass by. It was as if the journey of the train through the mountains was matching their own personal journey from sadness toward hope. The darkness they had both been carrying was slowly being replaced by something brighter. Emma and James decided to go to the dining car for some tea and biscuits. They sat at a small table by the window so they could continue to enjoy the mountain views. The dining car was warm and cozy, with red cushioned seats and white tablecloths. Other passengers were quietly enjoying their meals and watching the scenery. "I have been thinking about something," Emma said as she stirred sugar into her tea. "Maybe losing my job was not the end of my story. Maybe it was actually the beginning of something new and better." She opened her grandfather's journal to a page she had been reading that morning. "My grandfather started his own business when he was exactly my age. He was 28 years old, just like me. He had no money and no connections, but he had big dreams and the courage to try." Emma read from the journal. He wrote, "Sometimes life pushes us out of our comfortable nest not to hurt us, but to force us to learn that we can fly." He also wrote about being brave enough to create your own path instead of following someone else's path. James looked at Emma with a smile on his face. It was the first real, genuine smile that Emma had seen from him since they met. His whole face looked different when he smiled. The worry lines round his eyes softened, and his eyes sparkled with hope. "That sounds like something really worth doing," James said with excitement in his voice, "and I have been thinking about something too. Maybe all the difficult experiences I had during the war, and all the pain I felt when I came home, maybe those things could actually help other people who are going through the same struggles." James leaned forward across the table. "I could go back to school and study counseling. I could learn how to help other veterans who are having trouble adjusting to life after the war. I could turn my pain into something that helps other people heal." Emma's eyes lit up with excitement. "James, that is a wonderful idea. You would be amazing at helping other people. You have such a kind heart. And you really understand what it feels like to struggle." As the afternoon turned into evening, Emma and James continued to talk about their dreams and make plans for the future. This was their last night on the train together, and they wanted to make the most of it. They talked until very late, sharing ideas and encouraging each other. Emma explained her ideas for starting her own architectural firm. She wanted to focus on sustainable building design, which meant creating buildings that were good for the environment. She also wanted to honor both new ideas and old traditions in her work, values that her grandfather had written about many times in his journal. "I want to design buildings that will last for many years and that use materials that don't harm Earth," Emma said. "My grandfather always believed that we should leave the world better than we found it." James talked about his dream of helping other veterans make the difficult transition from military life back to civilian life. He wanted to be the kind of support system that he wished he had when he came home from the war. "You helped me understand something very important, Emma," James said. "You helped me see that my experiences don't have to define me in a negative way. Instead, they can be the foundation for helping other people. My struggles can become my strength." As the sun began to rise the next morning, Emma and James stood by the train windows and watched the mountains turn gold and pink in the early morning light. It was one of the most beautiful sunrises either of them had ever seen. The sight filled them with hope and wonder. "You know," Emma said softly, "I think we found something very precious in each other's friendship. We helped each other heal and find hope again." James nodded. "We were like catalysts for each other. You know what a catalyst is. It's something that helps create a change or reaction. We helped each other change from sad and hopeless people into people who believe in themselves again." Emma turned to face James. "Whatever happens from here, I want you to know that meeting you changed my life completely. I will never forget this train ride and how you helped me find my strength again. Meeting you changed my life too," James replied with warmth in his voice. "We will stay in touch, won't we? We will support each other through whatever comes next in our lives." "Absolutely," Emma promised with a bright smile. "Some friendships are meant to last forever, and ours is one of those friendships." When the train finally arrived at Edinburgh Station, Emma and James knew it was time to say goodbye. They stood on the platform with their bags, looking at each other with mixed emotions. They were sad to part ways, but they were also excited about the new adventures waiting for them. This goodbye felt different from other goodbyes. It felt more like the beginning of something wonderful rather than the end. James was heading straight to his brother's wedding. He no longer felt scared or worried about seeing his family again. During the train ride, Emma had helped him practice a beautiful speech about forgiveness, family, and second chances. James felt confident and ready to rebuild the relationships he had lost. "Remember what we practiced," Emma said as she hugged James goodbye. "Speak from your heart, and everything will be fine." "I will," James promised. "And remember what I told you. You are stronger than you know." And your grandfather would be so proud of the woman you have become. Emma continued her journey, alone, to the highland peak where her grandfather had grown up as a child. But even though she was traveling by herself now, she no longer felt lonely or isolated. She carried with her all the strength and courage that James had helped her rediscover during their time together. She also carried the determination to honor her grandfather's memory by living her life boldly and fearlessly. The bus ride to the mountains took several hours. Emma watched the Scottish countryside roll by, thinking about everything that had happened during the train journey. 2 days ago, she had been a broken and hopeless person. Now she felt ready to face the future with confidence and excitement. When Emma finally reached the mountain peak where her grandfather had played as a little boy, she felt overwhelmed by the beauty of the place. The view stretched for miles in every direction. She could see other mountains, green valleys, and a small village far below. The wind was gentle and warm, and the sky was bright blue with white clouds. Emma took the small wooden box containing her grandfather's ashes out of her bag. She held it close to her heart for a moment, saying a silent prayer of love and gratitude. Then she opened her grandfather's journal to one of her favorite passages. As she scattered her grandfather's ashes into the wind, Emma read his words aloud. Her voice was strong and clear in the mountain air. Life's greatest adventures often begin with an ending. Every sunset promises a new sunrise. Every goodbye leads to a new hello. The people we meet along the way are never accidents. They are gifts wrapped in ordinary moments. The ashes danced in the wind and disappeared into the vast landscape. Emma felt a deep sense of peace and closure. She knew her grandfather was finally home, and she knew he would want her to go home and start building a new life. 6 months passed, and both Emma and James had transformed their dreams into reality. Emma had started her own architectural firm, just as she had planned during the train ride. She worked hard every day, and her business began to grow and succeed. Her designs were creative and environmentally friendly, just like her grandfather would have wanted. Emma's first major project was very special to her. She was hired to design a community center for veterans who are struggling to adjust to life after military service. As soon as she got the job, Emma knew exactly who she wanted to consult with on the project. She called James and asked him to help her make the community center a healing and welcoming space for veterans and their families. James was honored to be part of the project. Together, they created a building that was both beautiful and functional, with quiet spaces for counseling, group meeting rooms, and recreational areas. James had also achieved his dream of becoming a counselor. He had returned to school and studied hard to learn how to help other veterans and their families. He specialized in helping people who were struggling with the same problems he had faced when he came home from the war. In James's office, there was a special photo hanging on the wall. It was a picture that Emma had taken during their train journey, showing the beautiful Scottish mountains outside their window. Emma had sent the photo to James with a handwritten note that said, "For reminding me that every ending is a new beginning." Emma and James remained very close friends. They talked on the phone regularly and visited each other whenever they could. They supported each other through difficult times and celebrated each other's successes. When Emma felt discouraged about her business, James reminded her of her strength. When James had challenging days at work, Emma reminded him of how much good he was doing in the world. Their story became one that they both loved to share with other people. They told friends and family about how a delayed train and an unexpected conversation had changed both of their lives forever. They talked about how two strangers had become lifelong friends and had helped each other find hope and purpose again. Emma and James learned an important lesson that they never forgot. Sometimes the most life-changing journeys happen not when we finally reach our destination, But when we open our hearts to the people we meet along the way, in helping each other heal from their pain, Emma and James discovered that hope, like true friendship, is one of life's most precious and valuable. Gifts taught their friendship proved that even in our darkest moments, there is always the possibility for light, love, and new beginnings.